The Sogdians, how Central Asia's middlemen ran the Silk Road for 500 years. Everyone knows the Silk Road. Almost nobody knows who ran it. For 5 centuries, the answer was the same. A network of merchants from a forgotten corner of Central Asia, speaking a language that no longer exists. Their homeland was called Sogdiana. Not an empire, not a kingdom. A cluster of oasis states strung along the Zarafshan River in what is now Uzbekistan and Tajikistan. Cities like Samarkand and Panjikent sat at the heart of it. The Sogdians were Iranian-speaking, not Persian, not Parthian, but a distinct branch of the Iranian language family. Their position, wedged between China, Persia, and the steppe, was not a vulnerability. It was a business plan. The Sogdian merchant network wasn't controlled by any single state. It was decentralized, a web of family firms, shared credit arrangements, and caravan partnerships stretching from Samarkand to the Tang dynasty capital of Chang'an. Their language became the lingua franca of the entire overland trade world. Turks, Persians, Chinese traders, merchants from a dozen ethnic backgrounds used Sogdian as the shared commercial tongue across thousands of miles of route. We know this not from legend, but from physical evidence. A bundle of letters written in Sogdian, dating to around 313 CE, was found preserved in a watchtower near Dunhuang. They're the oldest surviving merchant correspondence from the Silk Road. Those letters describe silk prices in China, political instability disrupting routes, and family members waiting for remittances back in Samarkand. They read less like historical artifacts and more like anxious business correspondence fired across a continent. The Sogdian network peaked during the Tang dynasty from 618 to 907 CE. This was the golden age of the Silk Road, and Sogdian merchants weren't just participants, they were the operating system keeping the whole thing running. Sogdian merchants didn't simply pass through China. They built permanent colonies inside Chinese cities. By the 7th century, Sogdian communities with their own leaders, temples, and legal customs were operating inside Chang'an, Luoyang, and Dunhuang. Historians have called them cultural bees. They carried Buddhism westward. Sogdian language Buddhist manuscripts found at Dunhuang document this transmission directly, and Zoroastrian fire temple architecture eastward. The fire temple excavated at Panjikent shows design elements that reappear in Tang-era structures along the eastern routes. Every caravan moved not just silk and spices, but iconography, musical instruments, and religious ideas across the entire Asian landmass. Here's the detail that stops most people cold. Sogdian silk weaving techniques were considered so sophisticated they surpassed even those of China, the civilization that invented silk. Sogdian textiles were the luxury benchmark across the known world. The network ran on paperwork. Sogdian merchants left behind trade contracts written in Sogdian, Chinese, Syriac, and Bactrian. These documents show credit agreements, partnership terms, and dispute resolution procedures. A functioning commercial law system operating across 4 languages. A common mistake is to picture the Sogdians as a territorial power, an empire controlling the road. They controlled nothing by force. Their dominance was economic and linguistic. Consider the colony at Dunhuang. Sogdian merchants there held property, arbitrated disputes, and set local commodity prices for silk and lapis lazuli, all without a single soldier, without ever governing the city. The road ran through their relationships, not their armies. The Turkic Khaganates that dominated the Central Asian steppe from the 6th century onward weren't enemies of the Sogdians. They were partners. Sogdian merchants supplied the goods. Turkic Khans supplied the military protection that made long-distance caravans viable. Then, between 705 and 715 CE, Umayyad Arab armies crossed the Oxus River and conquered Transoxiana, the region that contained Sogdiana. Cities that had traded freely for centuries now answered to a new political and religious authority based in Damascus. In 751 CE, the Battle of the Talis River ended Tang dynasty expansion into Central Asia. Arab and Turkic forces defeated a Tang army. The corridor the Sogdians had worked for centuries was now divided between two hostile powers. But here's the puzzle. The Silk Road didn't collapse after 751. Trade continued, caravans still moved, the routes still functioned. So the question isn't why the Silk Road ended. The question is why the Sogdians specifically vanished from it. Part of the answer is linguistic. The Arab conquest brought Arabic as the new administrative and commercial language across Western Central Asia. Sogdian, which had been the trade lingua franca, was displaced from contracts, courts, and correspondence. The Sogdians were predominantly Zoroastrian, with pockets of Buddhist and Manichaean practice. The Arab conquest didn't immediately force conversion, but over 2 generations, social and economic pressure made Islamization the path of least resistance for those who stayed. This is the key insight. The Sogdians didn't vanish because they died. They vanished because the category dissolved. Those who converted, adopted Arabic commercial practices, and integrated into the Abbasid economy simply stopped being recorded as Sogdian. The Guyuan tomb in Ningxia province, excavated in the 20th century, holds the clearest material evidence of this synthesis. Artifacts inside blend Sogdian iconography with Tang burial conventions. A man who lived between 2 worlds, documented in the objects he took with him. In China, the An Lushan rebellion of 755 CE changed everything. The rebel general An Lushan was himself of Sogdians' Turkic origin. The rebellion triggered a Chinese backlash against foreign communities, including the Sogdian colonies inside Tang cities. Within 2 generations of the Arab conquest of Transoxiana, roughly by 800 CE, Sogdian merchants effectively disappear from the documentary record. The letters stop, the contracts stop, the caravan manifests no longer list Sogdian names as principals. The Sogdian network's great strength was its decentralization. No central state, no army, no territory. That same quality meant there was no political institution to resist conquest, no military to defend cultural continuity, no bureaucracy to preserve identity. The merchants who filled the Sogdian role after 800 CE were largely Persian-speaking Muslims operating under Abbasid commercial norms. They used Arabic contracts, prayed toward Mecca, and traded the same routes, but the Sogdian cultural and linguistic layer was gone. The Sogdian case reveals something uncomfortable about commercial networks. A network built entirely on soft power, language, trust, cultural fluency, runs with extraordinary efficiency in stable conditions, and shatters when the political environment reorganizes around it. The mechanism is visible in a single node. When Arab administrators replaced Sogdian as the official language of Samarkand's markets after 715 CE, Sogdian merchants there lost their pricing advantage overnight. They could no longer draft enforceable contracts in the language courts recognized. The network didn't collapse from the outside. It was made unworkable from within, one administrative decree at a time. The structural parallel to other trade diasporas is exact. the Rhodanite Jewish merchants of medieval Europe, the Armenians of the 17th century Indian Ocean, the overseas Chinese networks of Southeast Asia, all built dominance on relationships rather than territory, and all faced comparable fragility when the platform shifted. The Sogdian language died, but its script didn't. The Uyghur Turks adapted Sogdian script for their own language in the 8th century. The Mongols later adapted the Uyghur script. The alphabet you see in Mongolian calligraphy today is a direct descendant of Sogdian writing. The Dunhuang Cave Library, sealed around 1000 CE and rediscovered in 1900, preserved thousands of documents in dozens of languages. The Sogdian letters found there survived only because someone bricked up a door. Most of what the Sogdians wrote is gone forever. That accident of preservation is a warning about how we read history. The Sogdians dominated Silk Road trade for 5 centuries, yet almost no one learns their name in school. Scholars estimate fewer than 1% of Sogdian commercial documents survived. Most were written on perishable materials in desert outposts that were never sealed and never rediscovered. Medieval European monasteries preserved Latin administrative records at rates historians estimate to be 10 to 20 times higher, simply because stone buildings lasted. The historical record doesn't reflect importance, it reflects what happened to survive. Ongoing excavations at Panji Kent and Afrasiab, ancient Samarkand, continue to rewrite what we know. In 1965, Soviet archaeologists uncovered the Afrasiab Palace murals, a continuous painted scene nearly 11 meters long showing a Sogdian ruler receiving foreign ambassadors, with figures identifiable as Chinese, Indian, and Korean delegates. It's the most detailed surviving image of Silk Road diplomacy ever found, buried under a medieval city for 1,000 years. The Sogdians ran the Silk Road for 5 centuries through language, trust, and relationships, and vanished within 2 generations when the platform they depended on changed hands. That's the pattern worth holding on to. Any commercial network whose power rests entirely on a platform it doesn't control, whether that platform is a trade language, a digital marketplace, or a payment system, is one policy change away from the same fate. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more.